I've worked the night shift at the mental health facility for years, and I can tell you, it's a different world when the sun goes down. The sterile, fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows across the long, narrow hallways, and most of the patients are asleep, but there's always one who keeps you on edge. This particular night, it was Mike. Mike had been admitted a few weeks earlier, and his arrival had sent whispers of unease among the staff. He was a quiet man in his 40s with a scar across his cheek, a relic of a troubled past that he never spoke of. He never said a word, just stared into space with vacant eyes. Most of the staff had grown used to him, but not me. There was something about his silence that sent shivers down my spine. One night, as I sat alone in the dimly lit control room, the power suddenly went out. The facility was plunged into darkness, and emergency lights barely illuminated the sterile walls. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my flashlight. The emergency generator would kick in soon, but until then, the darkness was suffocating. The emergency lights finally flickered to life, casting a feeble glow down the hallway. I strained my ears, listening for any signs of trouble. It was then that I heard it faint, deliberate footsteps echoing through the corridor. Each step was slow, deliberate, and it was coming closer. I swallowed hard and made my way out of the control room, flashlight trembling in my grip. There, at the end of the hallway, I saw the silhouette of Mike. He stood motionless, staring at me with those cold, vacant eyes. My heart raced as I approached him. "Mike, you need to get back to your room," I stammered, my voice trembling. He didn't respond. He just continued to stare. I shined my flashlight on his face, and his eyes bore into me with an unsettling intensity. I realized that I was alone with him in the dark, a fear like no other. As I reached for my radio to call for help, he suddenly lunged at me, his hands wrapped around my throat. I gasped for breath, struggling to break free. My vision started to blur as I fought for my life. With every ounce of strength, I managed to break his grip and scream for help. Within moments, other staff members rushed to my aid, pulling Mike away and pinning him to the ground. As they led him back to his room, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something far more sinister behind his silence. What could drive a man to attack a staff member like that? The night shift at the mental health facility had never felt so terrifying. Working the late-night shift at the subway station could be eerie. The station was usually deserted, and the echoing sound of trains passing through the dark tunnels could make you feel like the last person on earth. But one night, I encountered something that still haunts me. It was around 2:00 a.m., and I was in my booth, half dozing in the dimly lit station. The only sound was the hum of the overhead lights and the distant rumble of an approaching train. That's when I heard it, a soft, whimpering cry. It was so faint that at first, I thought I'd imagined it. But then it came again, a quiet sob, echoing through the station. I sat up in my chair, straining to locate the source of the sound. It was coming from the far end of the platform, where the darkness seemed to gather like a pool of ink. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously stepped onto the platform. The overhead lights seemed to flicker, casting eerie, shifting shadows. As I approached the source of the cries, the sound became clearer. It was a child's laughter. I couldn't believe it. Who on earth would bring a child into the subway at this hour? My heart pounded in my chest as I opened the door leading to the far end of the platform. The laughter grew louder, yet the shadows seemed to close in. The station felt like a different place at night, a realm where reality and imagination blurred into one. And there, huddled in a dark corner, was a young girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. She was disheveled, her clothes torn, and her face streaked with tears. The beam of my flashlight caught her, and she looked up at me, her eyes wide and innocent. I approached her cautiously, unsure of how to handle the situation. "Hey there, sweetie," I said gently. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" She didn't answer but continued to cry. Her tears fell like liquid crystal, glistening in the dim light. Her presence in the subway at this hour was inexplicable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Worried for her safety, I radioed for assistance, and the police arrived within minutes. They searched the station and the nearby tunnels, but found no sign of the girl's parents or any indication of how she had entered the building. The girl was taken to the police station, and a search for her family was initiated. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. How had she ended up in that abandoned subway station in the middle of the night, and where were her parents? I'd been the night guard at the old factory 4 years, a lonely job, where the echoes of the past and the shadows of forgotten machines surrounded me. It was a sprawling, dimly lit labyrinth of rusting metal, creaking floors, and long-forgotten tools. The factory was a relic of a bygone era, its massive windows now veiled in dust, and its cavernous rooms shrouded in silence. The factory's history was filled with tales of accidents, lost lives, and long-forgotten secrets. But I had never experienced anything more than an occasional creak or distant hum in the stillness of the night. That was until one night, when something happened that I can't explain. It was close to midnight, and the factory's metallic exterior seemed to absorb the moonlight, making it even darker inside. The clinking sound of my footsteps on the metal floor reverberated through the vast halls. I had just settled into my routine of checking the perimeter when I heard a strange sound coming from one of the storage rooms. The sound was subtle at first, like the soft, distant chime of a music box. I paused, my heart quickening, straining to hear it again. It came again, a soft, whimpering cry, echoing through the factory's vast chambers. The mournful, delicate sound felt out of place in this cold, industrial space. I followed the sound, my flashlight cutting through the darkness as I moved deeper into the factory. The closer I got to the source of the cry, the more I realized it was a child's laughter, as if it were carried on a gentle breeze through the cavernous halls. I entered a storage room that was filled with dusty crates and forgotten relics of the factory's past. There, in the corner, was the source of the sound, a little girl, no older than 5 or 6, sitting on the floor. She was engrossed in play with an old, weathered doll, her innocent laughter ringing through the room. The girl was disheveled, her clothes torn, and her face streaked with tears, yet her eyes were filled with the sparkle of innocence. I approached her cautiously, my heart a mix of concern and confusion. "Hey there, sweetheart," I said gently. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl looked up at me, her eyes wide and trusting. She didn't respond, but continued to giggle, her small hand cradling the doll. The room was filled with the dust and decay of time, and it felt like an impossible setting for a child to find herself in, especially at this hour. Worried for her safety, I radioed for assistance, and soon the police arrived. They searched the factory from top to bottom, investigating every corner and crevice, but they found no sign of the girl's parents or any indication of how she had entered the building. As the officers led the girl away, her laughter suddenly stopped, and she turned to me with a wicked grin. In her hand, she held a gleaming knife, the blade reflecting the dim light in a sinister glint. The police managed to disarm her, but her eyes remained fixed on me, filled with malice. She was taken away, and I learned that she was wanted for a string of violent crimes. If it weren't for the whimpering cry that lured me into the storage room that night, I might not be here to tell this tale. The echoes of that laughter and the wicked gleam in the girl's eyes continue to haunt me, a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected and terrifying encounters can happen during the loneliest of night shifts.